what you guys have been up to thus far for the album. So you've been in New York for 3 days now,
Yeah, this is our third day.
and it's been interviews and
Interviews and performance, and yeah, it's been pretty intense.
yeah.
I think so, but I haven't been doing it
Well, how does
as
it?
long as Ben. It's been
It's
been
just,
full.
this is probably pretty for what you're used to. This has probably been a pretty casual couple of days, right?
No, even by my own standards, it's been
Yeah.
it's been one thing after another. It's been really in a good way. You know,
Yeah.
the way the record's been received has brought about has set the stage for how busy it is.
Yeah. And the timing, I guess the timing lined up just right for a European tour that you were already doing.
Yeah, and it worked out that it was it timed out with the release of the record. That was already going to be on tour, so Mom agreed to come out.
Mother's Day couldn't have been a coincidence.
No, it wasn't a coincidence, actually. But we'd been talking about this since.
Yeah, I thought it was a good release day, or at least I think we're maybe right before Mother's Day or something, close to it. I wanted to do. Yeah.
Well, you want to get it out a few days in advance, right?
You make a record with your mom, you may as well release it on Mother's Day.
And it's a nice Mother's Day gift, by the way, just in case anyone's out there wondering what to do for their mom.
Yeah.
I mean, what he gave me is the gift of an album.
So you can either buy this album or go record an album with your mom.
Exactly, yeah.
You said you'd been talking about this for how long?
We've been talking about doing an album together for the last 17 years, 18 years. That's when we first did something together for Danny Clinch, photographer, filmmaker. And just that's what we did. We were talking about it.
Yeah.
And then it came to pass. And
What had to happen for this?
The best part about talking about making a record for that long is that you are consciously, subconsciously, or unconsciously preparing for it, writing for it, aiming. It's the pre-production that the record needed, whether you knew it or not. I didn't know it at the time, but I was setting songs aside. I'd write a song that would fit, because I write in a lot of different styles, and I write a lot. And the bad thing about writing a lot is you come to realize that a lot of what you do isn't great. But the flip side of that is, if you do write a lot, you're going to eventually hit on something worth keeping, hopefully. Yeah. And so over 17 years, when I'd write something that I thought would sort of meet the criteria for a record that would fit for Mom and I just set it aside, because I knew I would be writing other music in different styles for other things that I was working on, whether it be Fistful of Mercy or Innocent Criminals. As I've got a whole batch of songs for the Innocent Criminals as well that I've been setting aside since we've been on hiatus. So when taking time away from things is sometimes just another way for working in a different fashion.
But subject matter, or playing to your mom's musical strengths, what made a song fit?
It would have to be lyrically and sort of melodically, as far as what would work for a duet, was what I was looking for.
Did you play a role in the writing at all?
I did. I wrote 4 of the songs. Yeah.
Is there an overarching theme? I mean, there seems to be. Seems to be a little self-referential, I guess. Maybe.
Well, it seems to be self-referential, but and I guess that's a good thing, because it's like we really mean what we're singing. But it's also, I hope, more of a universal kind of theme to it. I mean, you want people to be able to relate to what you're saying. And is there an overall theme? I think there is. I think there's sort of a thread that runs through it about family, home, relationship.
The 4 songs that you have on the record.
Is
this also the culmination of 17 years of writing?
It's part of. I mean, it's the ones that fit. Ben actually, as the producer, kind of had the vision and the sense of what worked, which I was grateful that he did. And So, I brought a few songs and he said, yeah, let's try this one, and maybe not this one, which probably wasn't easy for him to say, but he, he, like I say, I trusted his judgment. So.
But you've been writing songs?
I've
all
been
these
writing
years?
songs forever, yeah. Some good, some not so good.
Is it hard telling your mom that a song isn't going to make it on the record?
It wasn't hard because it wasn't for the reason of the song not being good.
Mm-hmm.
The songs you brought me were great, but once we had established sort of an identity for this record 3 songs in, that became the challenge. What songs? I mean, she did it with me. I had a bunch of songs that I would play and see her response and reaction. Like, I'm going to see how, where this goes. So it wasn't so much a matter of this song's good, this song's bad, it wasn't any of that. It was more just about what was going to fit as far as production, the direction of the melodies, and also lyrically, because a mother and son, that can easily go in a direction that it shouldn't. So it was 17 years gave us a good amount of time to get our heads around, how we wanted this record to play out, and from that point, sorting through the material was the fun part, really. To say, okay, this song is great, but it's not going to work, whether it was mine or hers. Mm-hmm. Just figuring out what from our archives, past and present, was going to be able to slot in.
And looking back over the project, it's like we created a body of work, like in the old days when an album was a body of work, a collection of work, and there was a commonality to the songs. And I think just basically because of our upbringing and background in music, I think that's where it wanted to go, back to those days.
So you'd mentioned that I guess there are certain subjects you maybe don't want to broach on an album with a mother and son, and I'm wondering, as you get ready to embark on this tour, how you expect this tour to be different with your mom coming along.
Oh, I couldn't be more excited to especially to be able to have that as a component to this tour. I mean, this isn't a proper tour of my mom, and as you said, the tour was booked as a solo tour, but the fact that the record is coming out now and my mom's willing to come on tour, the show's going to need that. I like what my mom's going to bring and add to the show. I wish it would. I did 2 previous tours in the States, solo work, and I wish I would have had you out then. But so this is it's a special kind of, and I was looking for a way to make this tour different. I was going, how am I going to what? Because I don't like to do the same. I don't do the same tour twice, even if it is my own solo work. And my mom was willing to come out. We've got this record. It was the exact thing I musically needed to stay inspired at the right time.
I did a few Southern California shows with him on his solo tour. Right at the end, I think it was. Yeah.
Well, one at the beginning, and then.
One at the beginning. Yeah, and then at the end, and it was really a rewarding experience. And we were were we halfway through, or we hadn't finished the album at that point, because we finished in December, so we were halfway through.
You were testing the waters a little bit?
No, not so much. We just were, there were some Southern California shows, and it just made sense for my mom to come out. It could have been seen as a testing ground, but I'm not a big music tester.
Yeah.
Either the song stands up or it doesn't.
I guess I just mean in terms of playing in front of so many people all of a sudden. It's because it seems like, I mean, obviously you've been playing music for a long time, but then you join on with Ben and you're in front of everybody all the same
the 0 to 60
exactly.
factor. Well, I had not ever played really big venues. Ben's brought me up on stage a few times in the past. We hadn't done it recently, and there were pretty big crowds. And the first time was Santa Barbara Bowl, and was it 5,000 people? I mean, that was huge. I had never played for so many people, but other than the knees shaking a little bit, we did it. And
You never. I don't see you get nervous.
You hide it well.
Yeah, I I get the flutters for sure.
Yeah.
But
So tell me about the Folk Music Center.
well, the Folk Music Center has been around. It was started in 1958 by my mother and father, Charles and Dorothy Chase, Ben's grandparents, of course. And it's a music store. It's a museum and gallery of musical instruments from all over the world. It's an educational institution. We do field trips, museum loans, shows, all kinds of things, and teach lessons and classes, and put on a folk festival.
Are these things that it's sort of accrued over the years?
Yeah, it is, and really, I think it would be fair to say that the Folk Music Center is probably as much of both of our childhood homes as anywhere is. I mean, I was raised there. He was raised there.
Anytime anybody goes into a creative pursuit, invariably somebody asks what their parents think of it. But I assume that you've been pretty on board with the music thing as a career from the beginning. With Ben being a professional musician.
As far as Ben being a professional, oh yeah, oh absolutely.
Yeah.
Not that I even knew what that really entailed, beyond local coffee house. In the beginning, I mean, a lot of people in the family can pick up and play a guitar, and people that we know, and but Ben certainly has taken it beyond, and I guess maybe celebrity was an interesting concept to deal with, when that started happening. But he's made a career and not had to lose any of his integrity. So,
was there ever any question for you? I mean, obviously music was there from the beginning.
Yeah, no, there were times in my life, and especially in my teens, late teens, where I was further or closer to it for sure, but it's been there.
Yeah.
I just had to step to it and find the discipline and the commitment to it. And once that happened, there was no looking back, no fallback plan or anything like that.
And you got to encounter some pretty prominent people over the years through the store.
For sure.
I mean, who was coming in and out?
Well, the most special part about the music store are the names that you'll never recognize. Those are the people that took the most time and had the most patience as far as teaching and the stories and telling you the ways of music outside the doors of that store and introducing me to new music. I won't prattle on too much about that, but of course there's Jackson Browne, from Jackson Browne to Leonard Cohen to I don't know everybody else. I mean, everyone's been. It's such a special place that if you haven't been there, it's you should go. It's that kind of a place. But Taj Mahal and David Lindley and Ry Cooder and all the greats have definitely graced us with their presence in that music store. But again, it's the names that you might not know that were the difference makers in my life musically.
I mean, it's probably hard to put your finger on it, but why this music shop in Claremont? Why not any music store anywhere in LA?
I'm not sure what you mean.
How did this become such a hub, and how is it maintained through the years?
Well, I think when my parents arrived in Claremont, my father was in graduate school, and he became a school teacher, or he had been before, but he was a school teacher. They brought the music with them from the East Coast. My mother played multiple instruments and always taught and put on events, and there was just an immediate draw to them. They were in their home. There was such a need at that time for people to play musical instruments and to gather, and there was also somewhat of a force field of politics in the whole thing too. That was part of it, and it just got so intense so quickly that they opened a store within the first year that they were there, and it grew and grew. And
I guess I don't tend to think of LA as being as much of a hub for the for the folk music movement of the 60s as New York.
Actually, well, New York certainly has a lot more publicity.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot more notoriety about it. But you know, a lot of very famous people got started there, which is kind of how things are marked. You know, by the names that came through a place. But you know, there was a big circuit. There was the Ash Grove in L.A. There was the Penn University in Riverside. There was Redlands, Riverside, and then there was the Golden Ring and the Folk Music Center in Claremont, which was my parents, and so it was a whole circuit. And they
kind of gave birth to the Palomino, right? That maybe in the was that early 70s or late 60s, the Palomino, and the Coach House as well, and it's kind of Troubadour. Yep. Yeah.
You've got the Laurel Canyon.
Yeah, that's when it really sort of got LA took on its identity, kind of its post-folk boom into the sort of whatever it came out of that.
But it's amazing how many of those people came through Folk Music Center and how many people learned that way, in the old way, you know, the by ear, by sitting down and copying people's licks and playing along and, you know, getting...
How did you guys learn to play? I mean, you can both feel this question.
Well, you know, part of our learning to play, I think, at least, you know, if I can say so, is just being around it so much, and being around not just, you know, performers, but being around people putting a song together or rehearsing with other people, writing a song, you know, how that happens. Watching, you know, Ben must have seen my mother teach 1 million classes, you know, and it all just, you know, you absorb it. And so, you know, I was 14 when I picked up the guitar, and I just started watching people, and, you know, would grab anybody. The house was always full of musicians. You know, hey, how do you do that? Hey, how do you do that? How do you know? And
are they receptive when they see a kid hanging around the store?
Very much so, because the store is students and kids, and there's a youthful nature to the store. It's been there since 1958, but there's been now 5 generations that have worked in that music store, and there have been that many generations, if not 6, that have come through the doors to be a part of it culturally and to contribute to what the store represents in the community. And yeah, so it was welcome, although being a part of the store musically and then sort of heading out into the world thinking that you have something that's worth hearing are such 2 different conversations. But it was the best place to grow up and learn for me, because getting to repair guitars and work on instruments, getting to rehair violin bows and set sound posts and cellos and violins and stuff like that, it taught me. You know, I learned to appreciate the instruments before I appreciated the sound they made. So I came up through my musical awareness in a different way.
Just the sort of aesthetic beauty of
the aesthetic beauty and
by sorting all the little
and what makes up the inner workings of the instruments themselves and their essence.
But I mean, obviously the music is always there.
The music is there,
whether you know it or not.
But you don't ever. Dreaming is dreaming, but folk music is folk music.
I have no idea what that means.
No, I wouldn't expect you do. But who in the world thinks that they can take folk music and parade it around the world, and be able to even buy themselves a sandwich?
Yeah.
You know, succeeding in folk music is an oxymoron. So you have to sort of break the mold every time it's done, whether it's Mumford and Son, Mumford and Sons, or Woody Guthrie.
Yeah.
Of course, you dream.
Yeah. Same instrumentation, but different.
Well, yeah, you don't, and plus you don't. Growing up in a folk music store, the song you write is the success. You know, the community that you establish, that you can create a sound worth listening to, is a success. So succeeding, it also lends itself towards when you succeed on a local level, when you can sort of get that feeling. That's as good as anything I've ever accomplished. Being accepted by my own local musical community is success.
Well, that's what you said. You were saying, actually sort of playing around the store and around these people was something very different than, going out in the world. But I would imagine aren't musicians kind of the toughest critics of other musicians?
Yeah, it's true. I suppose.
Yeah, back to what you were saying, though, I've taught guitar classes and lessons in ukulele and banjo and for years and years and years. But I think every young kid that picks up a guitar and learns to play a song envisions him or herself on stage.
Sure.
Anyway, and then what was
With that said, though, you envision yourself on stage, yeah, and definitely dreams and in front of the mirror and all the good stuff that dreams are made of. But also, who really? It's almost you.
You mean the actual expectation
Well,
that could happen?
it almost didn't exist. Like when you're at a certain stage in your musical growth, records are like magic.
Yeah.
You're going, these people are magicians, and I'm someone who appreciates the magic show.
But you got to meet the magicians.
But again, there was no difference between a local artist who was amazing,
Yeah.
whether it was a guitar player like Pepper Brown, one of the greatest songwriters living in America today, Pat Breyer, or Leonard Cohen. It was blurred lines. They were all the same. So then you kind of grow up with this awareness that, man, if you're going to go out and do this, you got to have the goods on it. You just, I don't know. You don't think you can, you just got to get the people to show you their magic tricks enough times to where you can actually do one yourself. All of a sudden you pull a freaking long stream of rainbow flags out of the ear of a rabbit, and the next thing you know, you're on stage in France or something.
What was a magic trick you learned? What's an example of a magic trick? If you can give, I know you
I'll
can't.
give you an example.
Okay.
I was sitting with my grandmother. I was trying to learn a song by Mississippi John Hurt.
Yeah.
No, let's cut back to before that. I was listening to Robert Johnson for the first time. I'm listening to Robert Johnson, and I'm in my teens. And I go, who are these guys? Who are these players here? What are these guys' names? And she goes, Ben, there's only one guy. That's Robert Johnson.
Yeah.
And I'm going, that's one person playing that guitar with no overdubs? She goes, yeah. That's the first magic trick that I saw that I knew I needed to learn. So then
Down to the crossroads.
But my version of the crossroads was her coming in the next morning with me slumped over my guitar asleep on the counter of the music store, having practiced all night.
Yeah. Ellen, did you, because I'm certainly, I'm familiar with you through Ben, and I probably most listeners are, and I'm wondering if you had made that step out into the world earlier on. How much you were actually going on outside and playing.
Well, I had been doing a little bit from the time I was 14 or 15, going out to, there was a little venue called the Cat's Pajamas in Pasadena, and, playing around. And I kept it up, and, I went to college, dropped out, but played a little bit. There was a place called the Rouge et Noir in Long Beach, and, but I never did, and then, came home, I got married, had kids.
Yeah.
And was still playing in bands, but realized that there was a choice that had to be made.
Yeah.
It was just too disruptive, and to actually pursue that as a career would have meant packing up and leaving home and being gone. And the kids I was already a single mom, and it was the better choice was to keep the kids in a stable environment.
Yeah.
And postpone whatever.
So you did expect someday though to be able to go out and play
No,
again?
I don't think I really did. I'm a pretty content person, just being at home. I went back to school.
Yeah.
Which is also, that was a huge draw too. That kind of intellectual pursuit, and but I did keep playing. Even though I say I didn't pursue, there were certain paths I didn't pursue. I always played and always taught and always wrote. And this just happened, Ben's and I doing this is just the perfect timing.
I'm wondering if either of you ever musically rebellious because of this. You know, I mean, I see myself, you know, growing up around this music and kind of wanting to maybe go in opposite directions.
Oh yeah, I mean, I turned off the family music switch when I was in my teens and only listened to hip hop.
Yeah.
That's it. 90s hip hop.
What brought you back to?
Well, it never left, but it was just that was my youth's music. When License to Ill came out, all bets were off.
Yeah.
You know, when Tougher Than Leather, Run DMC came out,
Yeah.
Fat Boys, all that, it was done.
Yeah.
I was done. That
Yeah.
was for me.
But
the
you're
best
not a
part,
rapper.
no, but I'm able to take aspects and elements of
Yeah.
that sound and put it into what I do, and my roots were too deep, so I had to. You have to do what you feel, and so I pursued that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of a hacky question, but it's got to be asked: is what is it about this music that brought you back?
Oh, well, that's the question of all music, really.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, why would anybody... Have you seen the Raleigh Ringers?
Mm-mm.
The Raleigh Ringers... You got to YouTube the Raleigh Ringers.
Yeah.
Because they play bells
Uh-huh.
of all sizes.
Okay.
I mean, giant bells that are... where the circumference is maybe 3 feet. These giant bells. And they ring them, and they slam them, and they play them.
Yeah. I don't know how I missed that.
Who does that?
Yeah.
Who ends up being a Raleigh ringer, and who grows up with the ambition to be a Raleigh ringer? But people do, you know. And who play? They're professional timpani drum players. How does that happen? But you know, you just got to go to what's the indefinable
Sure.
reasons that we do what we do.
In your blood.
Oh man,
Yeah.
and that's the best part of it.
I mean, obviously, you've got, you know, quite literally, you have this built-in tour in place. So you've got this album coming out, and you can play it in front of people who
Yeah, that works out.
already
The timing's
perfectly,
too
who are who can buy tickets, and people know your name already. But I'm wondering if you.
good. Here's the part about that, though. I don't mean to cut you
Yeah,
off,
no,
but
of course.
every record you got to start over.
Okay. Yeah.
Every record, if you
Yeah.
don't approach every record as if it's your first,
Sure.
you're going to be hard pressed to at least in the music business, hard pressed to keep moving forward.
And you've played, you did the Charlie Musselwhite record, and you've done
Every record's your first
Yeah.
record, whether you have 1 or 20.
Yeah.
It's your first record.
And I'm wondering, especially in this configuration, given who's playing on it, given the subject matter, if you expect this to hit a different audience, is this going to play mostly to your core of fans, or?
God, I really don't know. You always want to keep reaching and stretching out and hopefully reaching new people of new ages and generations. And I think it has the potential to not only touch on people who are interested in what I do, but people who may have not heard of me at all.
Mm.
I'm hoping so. I'd like to keep expanding and growing.
There's sort of a timeless quality to the music.
Okay, thank you.
Assume that was something you were going for.
If you're going for timeless, you're lost. You know what? I'm going to go for that timeless sound.
Yeah.
We're going to create a seminal.
No, but I mean,
Yeah. But in
there's
time,
no
but time
auto-tune
decides.
on it. That, you know what I mean? Like, there's
Fair
no,
enough. No, and that's point well taken. No, it's
and like you said, like
matter of fact, there's not even nothing's plugged in. There's not one instrument on this record that's plugged in.
Yeah. I think I read in the press material you compared it to the early Elvis records.
Yeah, that was a production template for sure.
Yeah.
Where his voice was every instrument and everything else was the supporting cast, and his voice, yeah.
Why not plug anything in?
The first 3 songs, acoustic piano, sparse drums, acoustic bass, and acoustic guitar, and we kind of had a sound that we recognized fit the music the best.
Yeah. You had mentioned that earlier, you had to get those first 3 songs in place, and then everything else kind of fell in line.
I think things started falling in line with the first song. We did "Born to Love You" first, and I mean, I didn't realize it at the time, but in retrospect, I certainly think that song set the tone for the album. What do you?
No, I'm with you. That song, because my mom walked in, and we were going to look at doing another song to start with, and then Mom walked in, and I was playing that on the piano, all of a sudden I heard a harmony over my shoulder, and it was my mom, and we just kind of said, okay, let's roll tape.
I guess we're doing this.
Yeah, and at the time, the only things that were, the bass player was kind of mic'd and up, and the drummer was up, and I was on the piano, and the acoustic, Jason. We should introduce the band as well, because they're such a huge part of the sound. You know, when you are doing a record that's sparse, it comes down to the musicians that are playing. I mean, they end up being the symphony. And Jimmy Paxson on drums is really the engine behind this record. Jimmy, the way he approaches drums is different than anyone I've ever met. And it's as melodic as it is rhythmic. And then Jesse Ingalls on bass, and his touch on the upright bass is special. There's electric and upright bass. And Jason Mazursky, just very on guitar, special musicians, special guys. And they also, they made my mom. They were a huge part of my mom's comfort, because they move quick, don't they? You present them a song, and the next thing you know,
that's what made being in the studio not work. I mean, I'd say, well, here's a song, I'm thinking about this, and I'd play it, and they're listening, and maybe sometimes Ben says the sign of a good producer is knowing when to leave. Isn't that? But and then I'd say, well, I kind of like on the Farmer's Daughter song, I kind of don't want it to have that, one and two and, so, I kind of play it with a little bit of it. And Jimmy's just the next thing I know, he's just right there with the perfect.
Did you watch her? Was she timid at first, and then she's sort of calling the shots by the end? It sounds like when you're in your comfort zone.
I mean, my mom has a very specific way of, and I think I get that from her, knowing when to be assertive and also when to let people run with their perspectives and ideas for the better of the session and the song. You have that. So, there's a moment where, if you mistake it for timidity, you'll get cut.
Yeah. I think it was
in a nice way. Yeah, a pleasant cut.
I was just going to say, I think there's the director John Ford has a quote about directing is casting. It's hiring the right people and then pointing a camera at them.
Yes, I subscribe.
There you go. That was Ben and Ellen Harper. It was fun and kind of unexpected. I got an email from a press person asking if I wanted to interview Ben Harper and his mother, and I said yes. So of course I will. Of course I will do that interview. So I met them at the Ritz Carlton at Central Park in Manhattan, which is the first time that I've actually been allowed in the Ritz Carlton for any extended period of time. I didn't really know what I was getting myself into from an interview standpoint. I mean, obviously, Ben has been around the interview block. He's had all sorts of successful records and has run all kinds of Grammys. But his mom hasn't really been playing music professionally, and in a number of years, she's been running the Claremont Folk Music Center out of Claremont, California. Been playing a little bit of music on the side and raising a family. So I was very curious as to how she would take to the interview. So I was speaking to a rep beforehand, and she told me basically that one was like a seasoned pro. So I met up with them. They had just gotten off the interview, just gotten off the phone with somebody in Australia. They had done Chris Hayes' show the day before on MSNBC, and were a couple of days from going to Europe to do a large-scale European tour. So she hadn't played music for professionally for a long time, and was just kind of being tossed right into it. But I did a really awesome job. I think seems like a natural. The new album is out right now. It's called Childhood Home. I think you can actually stream it over on Rolling Stone. Good Mother's Day gift out just in time for Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day to everybody, my mom included. Thanks to Brian for editing that one together. Thanks to everybody at Shorefire for setting that one up. It was a lot of fun. Thanks to Mark and everybody else at Boing Boing for hosting the podcast. As per usual, lots of great shows over there. You can check them out on boingboing.net. You can also check all the shows out over on iTunes. And while you're at iTunes, why not take the time to rate the show? It's my birthday this week. That's the only thing I ask is rating for my podcast. We've got all sorts of great shows lined up. I've got about 2 months worth in the can right now, and lots of really excellent ones that I'm excited about. So we will catch you just about this time next week for another episode of RIYL.